All right, this afternoon we are joined by Mr. Joe Bustos, who's a candidate for House Seat 112 down in Charleston County, which is an open seat this year. Mr. Bustos, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, to start, we always want to make sure our members get to know a little bit about the candidate as a person. So if you could share a little bit with us about how your personal and professional backgrounds have shaped your views on the importance of education in our state.
Well, and that's a very good place to start. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, uh, left here when I was 19 and joined the Army. And I think the one thing that has held me in good stead through the years, and while I was in the Army, I managed to get my undergraduate degree and to get my master's as well with GI Bill. But the one thing that I've always thought and told people through the years was that I left Moultrie High School, which is a public high school, or was a public high school, with the ability to read. And through all the years, the one thing that is, as I said, held me in good stead was the fact that I could read. And a good public public education, armed with that, I was able to rise from a private to retiring as a lieutenant colonel, learned to fly at 53. And the one thing I always realized is I could sit down and I could read and I could comprehend things. And so for that, I thank my Moultrie High teachers, oh, well, and all the teachers. So I think I'm an example of what a good public school education can do and what it can provide. And that's part of my campaign because I think all children need to have that ability. And it's been very important to me, as you can tell. And I think even for the 13 years I was on town council, that we always try to support our schools. And here in Mount Pleasant, that's always been an important facet of our town, that the schools here in Mount Pleasant provide great education. And I think it's one of the reasons why we're one of the most popular municipalities in the state. So to go back again, I think that a good public education, which I had, held me in good stead for my entire life up to this point. So I think every child deserves that. I don't like the term minimally adequate, and I think that should change. I think that every student should leave high school fully prepared to whether they want to go out and learn a trade, go to college, or go right to work, which is basically what I did. Going in the Army was going to work, and there was a lot to learn, and I was always able to sit down with a field manual or whatever, and as I said, the Army paid for the education, and I was able to do it. But I always go back and attribute that to having a good public education and reading being the one thing that I was just makes me happy every day.
Well, I think you'll find many of our members love to read as well. And I love the kudos to your former teachers at Moultrie and at other schools. And we firmly believe that a great teacher is the key to educational success for students. But our state is struggling in that area. We have a crisis with over 6,000 teachers leaving the classroom at the end of the prior school year and hundreds of vacancies to start the school year. So as a member of the General Assembly, what steps would you push for to better equip our state to recruit and retain top teaching talent?
Well, let me go back a little bit. When I was first on town council and a businessman, I was recruited to be on an external review team for the State Department of Education, and went to several failing schools so that they could have the required inspection and meetings. And have the recommendations whether they should get additional funds, which I'm not exactly sure how I like that whole system of doing that. But nonetheless, I was there and I did that. I think that the biggest challenge is we have in Mount Pleasant, we have a great town, we have a great educational system, we have a lot of new schools, and I think teachers, at least I've heard this, that teachers are often willing to make less in order to teach in facilities like ours here in Mount Pleasant. And I appreciate that, but on the other hand, it's hard to live in a town like Mount Pleasant if you're not making a good wage. And I realize that. And I think that we have, because I have to expand my view to a state view now, that across the state, if we could replicate that and have a system where we graduate students that are fully prepared to go on to the next phase of their life after high school, we should do it. And we need to get the money to do it. And we have people who choose to send their children to private schools or parochial schools. And I appreciate that as well. But I think for the people across the state, all the children across the state, they and their parents should have the expectation that when they graduate from high school, that means something good. It's not just you have a diploma. It means that you are fully prepared and that the school system is telling employers and universities and people who want to learn a trade that they're ready for that. They don't have to go to that next step and then have to get remedial training or education to catch up to do that. When they hit the door, they should be ready. And like I said, that needs to be across the state. I know we have what's referred to as the corridor of shame and all these things, and we need to do something about it. And I feel that every parent and every student, whether they're in Mount Pleasant, Dillon, Ridgeville, Greenville, should have the expectation of being fully prepared when they graduate from high school.
So you actually just gave me a perfect segue into my next question. So I appreciate that. I'll make sure checks in the mail for giving me the segue. But it was about equity statewide and the need to make sure that every student has a quality education, not just a minimally adequate education.
Correct.
And you have a unique perspective, having served on some State Department review teams. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do we need to do to achieve the goal that you're talking about for every student in this state? How do we ensure that a kid in Dillon has the same opportunities that a child in Mount Pleasant is currently having?
Well, we need to make sure that they're funded adequately, those schools, and we need to make certain that the teachers are paid adequately. If I had a magic wand, I would certainly use it and make that happen, but I don't, and that's going to take work, and that's going to take working with people, and it's going to take convincing folks that, some of those taxes that, are being used for pet projects and one thing and another, that needs to stop. We need to, we need to do the things that are necessary and do the requisite things to educate our children. And if we do that, in my opinion, the state will receive much more benefits from productivity from workers. Businesses and industries will come here because they know that their workers are educated, and if they're not specifically educated in what they're doing, they know that they're equipped to learn those skills or sit down with a manual and be able to learn what they need to do and how they need to perform their duties in order to be successful.
So you also mentioned in an earlier response private and parochial schools and parents choosing that option. And that's been a big area of focus in our state over the last 2 months because of Governor McMaster's announcement to use federal COVID relief dollars to create private school scholarships for the current school year. And he has said that in the coming session of the General Assembly, he would like to see the General Assembly create a permanent version of this scholarship program through recurring state dollars. So my question is, if elected to the General Assembly and the governor comes in a State of the State address with that request, what will your approach be as a member of our state legislature?
Well, I feel at this point, my approach to that would be, I want to make certain everything is equal across the board and that we don't create some haves and some have-nots. I think we've had enough of that. And, you know, I have not seen exactly what the governor has said, but I know that we need to make certain that there's equity for all those children. And we can't create pockets of people who are doing better. You know, if he means that in like giving scholarships to students along the I-95 corridor, and that's his method of leveling the buckets, okay, I get that, but I don't feel it needs to be quite so confusing as saying we're giving scholarships. We should be providing that education without saying we're going to give this group a scholarship or that group a scholarship. Let's have the entire system supporting that fully prepared high school graduate.
Well, and you've talked a lot about the importance of graduation meaning something. That was a quote, graduation needs to mean something good. And that you said that really resonated with me. And I think that's really important in your district with the news that Boeing is looking to shift a ton of its manufacturing capacity to the Charleston area.
Right.
And that issue has been a focus for the General Assembly the last 2 years with their focus on educational reform to make sure that our system is producing graduates that are equipped for whatever comes next in life. There's consensus on that in the General Assembly as a goal. How to get there, there has not been consensus. The House had a version that passed that the Senate didn't pass. The Senate passed a version that the House didn't. And so coming into the next session, educational reform is likely to be right back on the agenda for the General Assembly. So I'd love to hear your views on how the state should approach educational reform. Is it through a sweeping comprehensive package as has been tried the last 2 years? Is it through individual issues to be addressed? What would your approach be?
Well, sometimes I think in government we try to make things too hard, too confusing, and it's probably not a easy topic, but I think we need to find out where the lowest point is and what it's going to take to bring everyone up to a standard. I don't want to pull anyone down. We've got to get everyone, like the rising tide, lifted, and that's where we need to approach making sure that everyone is improving. And as I said, minimally adequate, I think, sets the bar too low. I think we need to set the bar higher and work towards that bar. And I think it needs to be done more simply. I think oftentimes we try to make things too hard. We need to get teachers, we need to get, and this is something I found on the external review team, that you know, things didn't have to be so doggone hard. You know, they're just some things we can take and do, and we can arrive at where we need to be. It's like the old convoy. You know, sometimes you move as fast as the slowest ship, but at least you're moving. And that may be where we need to start. And we need to quit looking at what we can take money and hire people. I found that in some of the poorer counties that I went to, the external review team, it wasn't about education, it was about jobs. And I don't think that the school system is where we need to do we don't need to be a job creator, we need to educate. That's the mission of the teachers, it's the mission of the staff. And educating is what needs to be done, and we need to figure out how much money we need to be successful and then move forward on it. And there were times, and we heard I heard a superintendent, I won't say where, look at us, say, "Why do you care?" And everyone was taken aback and looked at me. He said, "Why do you care? These kids are only going to go hang sheetrock anyway." And I was stung by that. We had lunchroom workers that could barely do their job, and when we talked about that and getting bang for the school district's buck, they said, "Oh, we could never let her go." I mean, her father went here, and it was just a family thing that they depended on the school for a paycheck. And I think that loses sight of the actual goal of the schools, and that's to educate children.
Well,
I hope I didn't step on anybody's toes with that.
no. We have covered a lot of ground, and we want to make sure that you are able to share whatever you want with our members that you think they need to know before they cast a ballot in November. So is there anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure members are aware of?
No, but I just think we need to get to work, and we need to get, the teachers are there, have an education, they're there to work, and they're there to make sure the children are educated. But I think we need to make sure that we prepare, we give them the wherewithal to do their job, and that's a facility, all the things they need to provide that education. In the Army, we used to say you give people the authority and the wherewithal to do something, then you get out of the way. And if they don't do it, you reach in and maybe you take that person out and you put another one in. But you should give them the authority and the wherewithal to do it, to do their job, and then let them do their job.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to talk with us and your willingness to do the job of serving the state. Thank you also to your long career of public service in the military and town council. We wish you all the best this fall. And if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out and let us know. But thank you again for taking the time to share with our members.
Well, thank you. And I want you to understand that I feel that the education system is, if not the most important function of government, it's right up there.
It's certainly at the top of the expenditure list, so that should mean something in and of itself. Well, thank you again, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Well, thank you, and enjoy your evening.